All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tucson Fine Mineral Gallery this lovely Monday morning, and it's Tsumeb Monday. My name is Stu Niebert, and I am the gallery director here at the Tucson Fine Mineral Gallery. Without any further ado, I would love to introduce Geoff Krasnov and his talk on collecting Tsumeb. So, Geoff, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, Neil Lepescu, who is going to speak with me today, came down with a bout of COVID, so I am going to fill in for him and try and cover the back end of this talk, which he put together, and do the best I can, stumble through. So bear with me. I want to talk a little bit about collecting, and before I was a dealer, I was a collector, and early on I collected like most people do by aesthetics. What turned me on was form, color, associations, what have you. Over time, as most of you may have come to realize that do already collect, we wind up questioning the direction that we're heading with our collection, and start to get a little more serious about knowledge base and finding what is the most satisfying thing within the collection, and then maybe drilling down a little bit and seeing if we can explore those avenues a little bit better. For me, I wound up choosing calcite as a basis, and over time I found that calcite from all over the world was just a little too much to collect, so I found that I was drawn a little bit to certain forms of calcite, and wound up with a lot of Tsumeb pieces in my collection. When I became a dealer, I hooked up with Isaias Casanova, IC Minerals, and Isaias was very, very passionate about Tsumeb, and had already built a pretty good customer base within the Tsumeb community. And over time, as we did our shows at TGMS, we would wind up with Charlie Key and Bill Pinch and Mark Feinglos and many of the well-known collectors like Chris Ammo and Bill Schneider and Jim Robeson. We would have groups of Tsumeb people in our booth talking about the history, the stories, and I became very fascinated about 20 years ago with the complexity of Tsumeb, its structure with 3 fracture zones, a lot of hydrothermal activity, many rare elements that allowed for the formation of over 350 species. And what I find interesting today is that as these gentlemen have passed on, the knowledge base for acquiring information on Tsumeb has been slowly trickling away. And if you tune into the next talk, you'll hear from Malcolm Southwood on what he's doing about it, what he and Harvard are doing about it. So I really suggest that you stay tuned for that talk at 2 o'clock. So I'm going to try and take you through a visual presentation of why you might think about collecting Tsumeb and maybe the different ways that you could approach doing so. We're going to go through single species, family of species like carbonates and sulfides, assorted species. There's over 350 known species from Tsumeb, approximately. The unusual forms, pseudomorphs, casts, twins, associations, inclusions, coatings, aesthetic or photogenic specimens. If you'd please turn off your phones, it'd be great. Rarities, type, locality, specimen, provenance, and some ephemera. I'm going to start with my favorite, calcite, and I'm going to walk through it by color, twinning, coating, and inclusions. So, why collect Tsumeb? Well, what can I say? There you go. The number of colors in the carbonate group is pretty astounding. Secondary coppers leads us to greens and blues, and iron oxides and cuprite lead us into the reds.
Sorry, could you go back one slide, please?
Sure.
Yeah, one more. Because I didn't read the last sentence. Apparently.
Oh, okay. Calcites are only represented in Tsumeb, the three of the 5 forms. The rhombohedron, the scalene, which is pretty rare, and the prism. I've never seen a pinacoid or a dipyramid out of Tsumeb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, you bet. Okay. So twinning, I've only found one twin form of calcites in Tsumeb, and that is the rhombohedral twin, which is 127 degree. You have closed twins, open twins, rotational twins, but you could certainly collect just by twinning. We can look at coatings. Here we have there we go. A scalene, which is quite rare, coated by calcite, so it's calcite coated by calcite. Here we have large rhombs coated with hematite, duftite, or possibly conocalcite coating, motramite, iron oxides, and silomelane. The motramite, duftite, conocalcite series, it lends itself to many of the coatings that we find in Tsumeb. We can see that it orients in different ways. We can have epitaxial orientation, terminal orientation, dispersed orientation, and full coatings. Here we have dioptase as fully included, dispersed, hoppered face infill, preferential faces. And then we get some of the vivid blues from orichalcite, malachite, dioptase. The one on the right has got a large bleb of malachite underneath, which makes it obvious as to what the colorant was. Then we have hematite, which again can coat in many different ways, and we can see the range that we can achieve. So, collecting by coatings or inclusions is certainly a very specific avenue to take, but it's very rewarding from the standpoint of color. Excuse me. Then we have malachite, as blebs included, fibrous malachite included, creating greens and blues. And one of the favorites among Tsumeb collectors are the chalcotrichite included species. We have a wonderful piece here with the malachite, and on the right side we have chalcotrichite phantoms with dioptase association. Other types of inclusions. We have, this is fairly rare, although it was a copper mine. Finding calcite included copper is quite extraordinary. I only have one piece, this is it. We get fully included discoidal calcites with dendrites of motramite, which are all inside, nothing on the outside. We have scalenes that were coated by hematite and one of the secondary coppers, later coated by a generation of rhombohedron. This is a rather outstanding specimen of malachite, pseudo-cuprite, pseudo-copper included and on the calcites. Not sure what that inclusion is, and it would take destructive testing, so we're going to leave that as it is. Kind of stratiform silomelane inclusions. So again, aesthetics can drive us, and the technical nature of the inclusions can further our interest. A lot of pseudomorphism at Tsumeb. Here we have calcite after Turner-Whitsite and a couple pieces of dolomite after calcite. Couple named pockets. One was the ice cream pocket with the sugary coating. That was found in 1977. Very distinctive, very interesting pale blue. And towards the bottom of the mine, a very large cavern, fully lined with these calcites, was found, was named the Crystal Palace. My favorite association is the pink cobaltoin dolomite, on which the calcites later formed. And of course, you add a little malachite, and you get just a wonderful aesthetic. So moving on to class of species, I show Jim Robeson here, who was a very avid carbonate collector from Tsumeb, amassed a fantastic collection. Ian Bruce wound up buying it, and we miss Jim a great deal. So again, as with calcites, we see that the smithsonites can be quite colorful, whether it's manganese or copper or cadmium, cobalt. Just a visual treat. Smithsonite has many habits. We see botryoidal, what we call rice grains, the prism, rhombohedrons, acicular crystals, and of course you get lots of modifications to the rhombohedron. Smithsonite is associated with many minerals. These are just a few. Just based on aesthetics, we chose these two examples. Rather stunning. And of course, we have the pseudomorphism. So smithsonite after Turner-Whitsite, smithsonite after calcite. And then we move on to dolomite. And dolomite specimens from Tsumeb typically are casts. From the standpoint of an aesthetic collectible specimen, we don't often find crystallized dolomite. We find these wonderful casts. And as you can see, again, as in the carbonate group, we get just a full range of color. This one looks like a foot and is about a foot in dimension. Just as colorful as you can get. Probably the nicest dolomite cast I've ever seen. So we move to aragonite, and surprisingly, aragonite does not form in its pure form very often in Tsumeb. This is the only specimen I've ever seen. thanks to Malcolm Southwood. Thank you, Malcolm. That's just a marvelous piece, but its varieties, lead and zinc varieties, are much more common. Tarnowitzite, which is our lead-rich variety, and nicholsonite. And Neil just really wanted to get that flowstone in there. That's a post-mining specimen. It's so pretty. So there it is. Moving on to the copper carbonates, we of course start with azurite, which is they can be very blocky, tabular, or bladed. Most of them are striated, and the color can go from an extremely vivid blue to a very dense dark blue. Two great examples of striated crystals. Two known pockets, named pockets. One, Perkins-Sams, which was found in 1980. Big blocky crystals, very dark usually. And then the Easter pocket, which had its own distinct habit. Azurite will pseudomorph fairly commonly to azurite, to malachite. We see a partial, we see a complete pseudomorph, and then we have a rossicite after malachite after azurite. So continuing with the rossicite pseudomorphs, you can see the range in color, and of course the habit retention. Continuing with pseudomorphs, we have smithsonite after azurite, baledonite, and then a malachite after azurite coated in quartz. Yes, there are twins of azurite. I didn't believe it until I saw them. Quite rare, and we have a couple examples here. So another copper carbonate, malachite, magnificent spherical aggregates of acicular malachite crystals, courtesy of Scott. One of the many associations, and probably the most dramatic, is malachite on calcite. And we move into the lead carbonate, cerussite. Reticulated cerussites out of Tsumeb are considered a world standard. They can be quite delicate, so finding good survivors is becoming more difficult. Some are more stout and hold up pretty well. A couple different forms. We have a heart twin and actually a phantom crystal, which is very interesting. Love those chalcotrichite inclusions. And cerussite pseudomorphs to hydrocerussite. A little hydration, and we get this nice chalky looking species. So moving into some of the other species, we have a full range, starting with Neil loves his tenantine twins. These we call trilbit twins. We have the pseudomorphs of tenantite, chalcocite, and possibly azurite, the one on the right. We have tenantite after mimetite, tenantite after energite. I don't know why Neil put this slide here, but it's pretty. Cerussite with malachite inclusions. Really belonged up in the carbonate discussion, but that's okay. We like it. It's good. Thanks, Neil. And this gorgeous piece, just apple green smithsonite coating cerussite. Again, I would have put that up in the carbonate area. Anglesite and hydrocerussite after anglesite. We have our mimetites in all the glorious forms. And one of the minerals most famous from Tsumeb are these gem pocket mimetites. They're really the world standard when you talk about gem mimetites. These pictures do not well define how bright and sensational that they are. Mimetite pseudomorphs after cerussite. And of course, it was a copper mine, so we have to show some copper specimens. Both of them have some bits of cuprite. One on the right is a well-known specimen with the bright red cuprites on a very arboreal specimen. So the fibrous form of cuprite is chalcotrichite. Here we see it as a matte coating copper, and of course included in calcite. Another mineral that really defines Tsumeb is the dioptase that comes from there is likely the brightest, gemmiest dioptase found, and its best association from a visual standpoint is on white calcite. A rather rare combination is finding dioptase with wolfenite. You can find them, but they're very difficult to obtain. And we move on to willomites. Here we have some botryoidal forms and a acicular. As we go through this, the intent of the talk is to perhaps begin a conversation within your minds of why you might be attracted to Tsumeb, and you can see the aesthetics of these specimens are really quite extraordinary, all from one mine. The wolfenites from there are exceptional. Variety of colors. They can be clear. We get the butterscotches, we get the yellows, and we get the blues. And they also associate very beautifully with zinc olivinite here. And wolfenites are often found coated with the motramite, duftite, goethite, any of the secondary coppers. So here we have motramite as a specimen. Of course, I love it with the calcite. I believe this piece is over for sale in Ian's shop right now, in case that one grabs your attention. Motramite is a coating. Again, it could be calcite. These, I don't believe any of these specimens have been tested. Unfortunately, a lot of the analysis is done visually or taken off a previous label. So we do have to take, that with a grain of sand when we talk about this series of secondary coppers. I call that concentric circles within, kind of bullseyes. Beautiful specimen of Motramite.
Is that all Motramite or is something?
It's all Motramite. Yeah, it's all Motramite. What happened here? Aha, that's a magnificent calciodustite scat. I have no idea what happened there. Okay. Huh. Okay. It doesn't want to show itself. Calcite, both associated with calcite. Oh, what is going on here? Help. Okay, well, we do get quartz coatings. You saw one previously on an azurite pseudomorph. Here's one with coating malachite and hematite, and that magnificent specimen over on the right is chalcotrichite and calcite coated by quartz. Quite a nice piece. Unfortunately, it has gone dark. Oh, okay. Oh yes, aesthetics. There's not supposed to be a picture here. This is good. We're good. So Neil felt it was very important to talk about aesthetic and photogenic specimens, and I think we've already seen quite a few. But he wanted to really point out that certain specimens, you just don't need words. You just know when you see it that it's a highly aesthetic specimen. For example, who doesn't like them? Pretty. So we're going to go through a series of, really special pieces that just take wonderful photographs. Here we have duftite oriented and Mercedes symbol on milky white calcite rhombs. I believe this was an isolated pocket of highly iridescent duftite associated with calcite.
Did you?
Sometimes subtlety draws us into an aesthetic. Here you have a wonderful gradation of greens to rusty brown red with dioptase and hematite and calcite. Another iconic species from Tsumeb are these blue smithsonites. Not terribly common. I don't know that I've seen more than a handful in my 30 years doing this, but they're rather exceptional. Great. Okay. Well, we've seen a lot of those. I mean, look at the architecture. Fantastic. Okay, so rarities and type locality species. There are actually 72 type locality species, and a lot of them are very difficult to pronounce. And you wonder, well, you're talking about aesthetic specimens. Well, why are you putting these in here? Well, they can also be aesthetic. Here we have Keyite, named after Charlie Key. Is the blue mineral with zinc limonite. I can't say Schneiderhonite is pretty, but it's a very nice crystal. The scoridites can be rather beautiful. That particular specimen is included with betpactolite. And the alamosite, another very, very rare species. Fibrous ludolokite, ladyite, and beldonite, which was originally sold as a brochantite and later discovered to be the world's best beldonite, which John Schneider owned and actually won the Lindstrom Award with that rock. Molybdophornicite, the other picture was just showing it in a vug of calcite, but this is the close-up picture, which was the important one. Just quite beautiful. It's pretty in its own way, let's just say that. It's a little challenge, but okay. Oh, look, the stibioclautite disappeared. Okay, continuing on. This is very unusual. Andy-robertsite is probably one of the rarest of the rares. I don't think there were more than a few specimens found. That was a Bill Pinch specimen. So you can see you can get aesthetics out of rarities. Okay, a little discussion on provenance. We certainly can collect specimens based on who owned them previously or where they were housed or who had possession for a period of time, whether it was mining company personnel, local dealers or well-known dealers, other collectors who made a name for themselves by having astounding collections, and of course museums and academia. Oh, poor Bill. Bill Severance was over there. But Bill was very, very meticulous about tracing the history of the specimen, and his labels would often have the provenance going back as far as he could go, and he would typically have those backup labels with his specimens. One of the most famous of the Tsumeb dealers were the Zweibels, who were very active in the 70s. Certainly having a Zweibel label is meaningful to many of us Tsumeb aficionados. Prosper Williams was another one of those dealers. And we do cherish any labels that have survived that came from Prosper. Some of the other well-known dealers were Clive Quate and Sid Peters. And they both had minerals named after them. There's Charlie Key. He had 2 minerals named after him. I have no idea who that is. The Ian brucite is the lighter blue on that specimen. Another big loss to our community, Mark Feinglas, who was an extraordinary mineralogist. Not the prettiest of rarities, though. And of course, Bill Pinch. We miss a great deal. Oh, come on. Marshall, where'd you go? All right, so many of you know Marshall. He's still around, and he himself has built many extraordinary Tsumeb collections and deacquisitioned them and built new ones and deacquisitioned them. Brought a lot of, spent a lot of time in Namibia and sourced. So Marshall's still with us, and you should avail yourself of him and his knowledge as you can. A well-known collector, a good friend, John Schneider. There's that Beltonite, which he won the Lidstrom Award. John collected basically aesthetics and sometimes rarities if they were also aesthetics. So I guess all aesthetics. Then we get into academia. Any labels out of a museum certainly add value to a specimen. So here we have a couple examples. One with an Arthur Montgomery label, well-known dealer. Oh, for God's sakes. We lost the Mount Rushmore of collectors. Oh, this is terrible. Anyway, it was a wonderful picture of a group of us in the booth, all Tsumeb people, and of course, those are our presidents. So ephemera, I really wanted to get that rock. That was in a rock courier collection. A great calcite specimen, which some miner's wife decided would be something nice to paint on. I certainly can call that ephemera. There's a lunchbox from one of the miners. We have a locomotive shield, courtesy of Martina Petrovic, and a little belt buckle that I managed to come across. And of course, Tsumeb stock is quite collectible. These are wonderful. These dioramas were made by miners, and I've seen a couple of them personally, but just wonderful artifact from the mine. Prosper was not only a dealer, but he was an artist, and again, very collectible. A couple photos of what Tsumeb looks like pretty much today. And there we got Armin Scholler. I'm not sure who the other guy is, just trying to get in, but they can't find a way around. So for those that are thinking about starting a Tsumeb collection, these are just some illustrations of things that we happen to have in our booth that are under $300. You can certainly get into Tsumeb, especially with miniatures, in $100 to $200 range, and they're still aesthetic. Of course, as you climb the ladder to the better specimens, they do begin to get pricey, but there is an entry level, and hopefully we're encouraging enough of our audience today to begin thinking about collecting Tsumeb. So some acknowledgments here for the photographs and the specimens. I'll let you take those names in for a minute. And that would be the end of my discussion, and I'm not taking any questions. All right, any questions? None? Martina, you don't want to heckle me? Come on now. Come on, throw one at me. Yeah.
Show a picture of a lead hill. What was the scuzzy white stuff?
What's the scuzzy white stuff on the surface of the leadholite? You know, I know the answer to that question. I want to know if Malcolm knows the answer to that question.
I haven't got a clue, Jeff.
Okay.
I didn't notice the scuzzy white stuff.
Well, the surface is a little fuzzy there. There's some on your head.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I have no idea. No idea. I believe there's a little cerussite on it, but I think that's the leadholite. I don't know. Malcolm, you don't know?
I would think it's possible that you get some alteration on it, but I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Any easy questions?
Interestingly, Jeff, that specimen was sold as anglesite originally for 50 rand by the baker in Tsumeb to Rarities.
That is interesting. I'm sorry?
Can you put a picture of the specimen?
Yeah, I can try and fly back to it. Oh. Come on. So you're talking about all these little
Yeah, looking at it, I would think there's a very high probability that's sericite.
Sericite, yeah, because you see a sericite up there. Yeah. Yeah. Or hydrosericite.
So what's the size of that specimen?
I mean, there's a whole article in Rocks and Minerals about that specimen from Rarities, and I would, from memory, I would think it's about 12 centimeters.
Well,
Yeah, that's a big piece. Yeah.
yeah.
You have one more? Okay. Mal? Which oxidation zone?
That's second oxidation zone.
Second?
Yeah.
There you go. I defer to Mal for, he is the knowledge base of Tsumeb today. Yes. Any hard questions, ask Mal. Give me the easy ones. Softballs, please. Anybody else? You have another one? No? You sure? Okay. Well, thanks again, guys. I appreciate the audience.